Hey guys, how you doing today? I just bought a little wagon here. This is for my little pug, Milo. He's getting to be that age where he's not really liking being around or anything like that. And so I figure I've got to do something to help him on out. Hold on one second while I figure out what I'm doing with my life. There we go. Yeah, I've been thinking more and more about I always think about capitalism, and I always think about how it's affecting our society, and I always think about just how strange it all is, and how hung up we are on so many things and so many strange ideas we get caught up in. And I feel like there's it's a real truism of capitalism like that, and I was always taught and always told over and over again, like when you're at work, you really aren't your own person, right? You can't make your own decisions. Your decisions have to be the decisions that the company makes, and that has a certain logic to it when you're dealing with just like company policy, and when you're dealing with company ideas, right? You just pull the company line, and that's what you do, and you're paid to be there. That's what they'll tell you, But it has spillover effect, that when you are at work, you are just an NPC for that company. Like, I'm a toy store NPC for a lot of people, right? And people walk by me on the street that I know, and that I know from the store, right? And they just look right through me, right past me, because I'm a toy store NPC. That's where I belong, as a toy store fixture, almost. The brain is actually built for this. Like, we compartmentalize things, and if I'm in the toy store compartment and you see me outside the toy store, then it's not going to click in, right? And your brain might be like, yeah, familiar. And then you have to kind of go through the file of your brain and sort of figure out, where have I seen this guy? And capitalism kind of feasts on this idea, this compartmentalizing idea, and this NPCing. And I really feel it when it's and for the most part, you go through your life and that's fine, but there are other forces that exist in this world and in this plane of reality that I feel conflict and should ultimately supersede the demands of the capitalist class. Like, just today, there was this lovely woman who I had a really nice interaction with. I think I had a nice interaction with her pre-COVID, so it had been months and months and months since I'd actually seen her. And there was a part of me the entire time, like, she even told me her name. We were having just we had nice interactions, we were having a nice interaction. And there was just a little part of me that was like, I should ask this person out, right? I should just say, hey, would you like to go to dinner with me? And the only thing that prevented me from doing that is the fact that I am a toy store NPC. Like, I'm an avatar of the toy store. And what were to happen if I did that and then she complained about it? Like, I have a pretty good sense of what would happen, right? That I would be sat down and I would be reprimanded. And it got me thinking, like I've asked out women who are at work, right? Because the onus is on the man to do the asking. That seems to be the case. Like, we live in a society which is trying to say, like, no, women should be able to ask men and all of that, but it really is still, the onus is on the man to do the asking. And I end up being an idiot no matter what, right? Like, if I ask a woman out and she's at work and she says no, well, imagine if I were to turn around and complain, right? Everyone in the world would call me an idiot, right? So I can't, So, I mean, that takes pressure off of me for doing that. And, sorry guys. And, but if I ask a woman out and I'm at work, well, she can complain and then I'll get reprimanded and I'm called the idiot again. So it's like a lose-lose, you know? Like, the only way that I win is if I have taken a gamble that even if she says no, she'll be okay with being asked in the first place. But these days that seems to be quite a gamble. Seems to be quite a risk. And it seems as though it seems harder and harder for a person, for anybody really, to interact with anyone in a way that could lead to any kind of romantic kind of interaction. Like, you're not allowed to date the people you work with. You're not allowed to ask customers out, right? Like these sort of unwritten rules, these sort of things that are assumed. And I mean, if you're like a part-timer, right? Things are different, obviously, if you're just like a part-time associate or whatever. But the second you get up into management, the rules change, and you are this avatar critter. I always think from time to time about this channel that I'm doing right here, right now, right? Like, is this going to come back to bite me? Are people going to start being like, John, like, you can't openly speak your political mind in a public space because you're a manager for a toy store, right? I think about that. Will that come around on me? Will I be told that my public persona or my image of who I am in public has to also be controlled? Or will it get to that point? Because, I mean, capitalism feels it has the right to interfere with my love life. It feels it has the right to interfere with my romantic relationships or my attempt to pursue romantic relationships. Why wouldn't it also do the same for my political life and my ability to speak publicly, politically? So, in many ways, I sort of feel like it's an inevitability that my job and this channel will come into conflict with one another. Because it comes into conflict in almost every other aspect of my life. That there are so many things that I'm not permitted to do. And there's so many things that it's like I'm constantly going behind people's backs. And I'm constantly questioning, well, how would the owners of my company feel about this? And I do think it's naive to believe that, oh, well, you know, if you're off company time, that's your life and you can do what you want. And I think that's actually quite naive. Like, I do think that your owners will think about this and they will contemplate these things, and they will, when it comes time to promote, right, will they actually even consider someone who is publicly stating on an open online forum that capitalism is a problem, because it is. And I don't think they would see the irony in denying someone a promotion because they said that capitalism is a problem. But yeah, this capitalist system that we live under, this idea that I'm even talking to friends about, and acquaintances, like all the time, people you run into on Facebook, you know, people you've known for, 10 years, but maybe you haven't seen in 9, and you just keep running into these people, and more recently now, people are taking my position more seriously when it comes to capitalism, which is that capitalism is irredeemable. It actually cannot be redeemed. It's a slave system that relies on genocide and theft to perpetrate itself, propagate itself. And that if it stopped committing genocides, and it stopped enslaving people, and if it stopped perpetrating theft against foreign populations, then it would cease to exist, because it couldn't actually exist without that. It needs those things to exist in the world. And if we were to actually look at how we would want to build a system properly, no one in their right mind would say, well, let's just have a group of people who do no work, who simply own things, and then everybody else does the work, and then the owners take the vast majority of the benefits of that work. Like, if you said that, no one would agree to it. Like, it's only just the desperation and the isolation and this individualistic outlook that allows the capitalists to continue to survive. Because, like, if you were in a vacuum and that was the system that you put forward, like, oh, I'll own everything and you do all the work, and then I'll take the majority of the benefits of that work, and I'll give you enough to survive. That's the arrangement of capitalism, and no one would agree to it. And yet it's the situation that the vast majority of us find ourselves in. And of course that extends it to be even worse, which is like, oh, and if I don't need your labor, like, I've got enough people working for me, you can just go die. Like, that's the capitalist solution to how to ensure you have a stable society. So, like, I've said it before on this channel, I'll say it again, and I'll say it over and over and over again until I'm blue in the face. The workers should own the shares, right? Right now you have one group that owns all the shares, and then another group that does all the work. And the shareholders make the decisions, the workers just do the work. And we should transfer those shares from the shareholders to the workers. And it should be done through a very simple share buy. You could even do, if you wanted it to be like the most equitable and the cleanest way that you could do it, you would, what you would do is you would give the workers the right of first refusal. So anytime a business or a share goes up for sale, the workers are the first group that have the right to say no if they want it or not. And of course the workers would likely just buy it, right? You create like a very simple collective organization, like, I don't know, let's say a union, and you and as those shares come up for sale, the union buys them, and then those shares are owned by the workers. And then the workers are the people who show up at the shareholder meetings, and the workers are the people who make the decisions about what happens in a company, instead of a group of people who don't work in the establishments and probably couldn't find them on a map, and certainly couldn't do the job if they were told to. And so this kind of return of, well, not return, but this transfer of decision-making power and ownership from this worthless ownership class to the working class, it would take decades to complete. Because, like, unless you're really like a rah-rah, let's go seize the means of production, right? Just like go in there and take it. But I don't think that's a very peaceable solution, and I do think that it engenders a lot of strife in the society. I mean, you can take a look, like, you can really agree with socialist policies and this idea of seizing the means of production, but it does certainly create an antagonism that exists in the capitalist class. Capitalists don't like it when you steal stuff from them, right? They don't, believe it or not. They don't like it when you transfer assets away from them without their permission, regardless of how they got those assets. They're not going to care about the historical context or any of that kind of stuff. They're not going to care about that their family was just given that land in the first place. They're not going to care about any of that. They're just going to hold it against the people, and then they'll plot with the CIA and plot a coup and an overthrow. You look at Venezuela for that, right? Or Bolivia, right? You get a socialist government in that seizes the means of production away from the capitalist class, and then the capitalist class works with the CIA in order to foment dissent and coup the government, sometimes successfully, sometimes not. It hasn't been successful in Venezuela because Venezuela's onto the game. It was successful in Bolivia, though. Completely successful. Elon Musk even confirmed it. So, just creating a policy that transfers shares away from the capitalist class to the working class through a system of the right of first refusal is a much more peaceable way of doing it, because it inevitably leads to a transfer of control. It's not an immediate sweeping change. It's like a slow motion coup is what it is, because eventually the owners die, right? Eventually they just die. And when they die, it's the workers that have the right of first refusal. And any politician that has a brain in their head is going to work with the working class in order to secure the loans that they need to buy these shares. That's a no-brainer. That's an easy thing to do. And the politician that's passing this legislation in the first place is likely going to do that. And it would be a complete political win for them. I don't understand why politicians wouldn't want to do this for the working class. It ensures that they would remain in power for the rest of their lives, right? If the Prime Minister of Canada stood up and enacted this policy, he would stay in power for decades. He would be the ruler of Canada for decades and decades and decades. The trouble, of course, is that Canadians are very gullible, as I've always said. And if you were to stand up and actually say, oh, here's a policy, all the conservatives and the conservative media would do is spin some kind of lie, the way that they always do. And Canadians, because they're extremely gullible, will just eat that up. So, no, we're going to have to face some genuine collapses and some genuine strife before Canadians are willing to put two and two together and realize that the capitalists are not working on their behalf, and that the workers are working on their behalf. Strange times. Stranger and stranger every day. Stranger and stranger every day. I feel like I live in an artificial world. Working at the toy store is nice. I had a nice day today. I had a fine time. I talked to people. I laughed with people. I help people find an item to make their children smile. I get to talk to children who are laughing and playing, right? I get to just be part of a joyous and successful institution, a toy store, right? And we're not like a Toys R Us toy store. We're not like we're not just a hole in the wall. You walk into the mall and you see a place just jam-packed with items. That's not what we're doing. We're an event. We're a retail event, right? When you see a movie and you see a kid looking through the window and going whoa, and they go in and it's full of stuff and oh wow, and there's people juggling and doing all that kind of stuff. That's what we're doing. Right? That's the reason we're successful. And that's the reason we'll continue to be successful as long as our owners realize that that's the case. That while Amazon sure can put stuff on your doorstep, Amazon can't provide you with that event. They can't provide you with the toy store experience, which is what people are looking for, right? They are looking for that. And that's the hole in the market that we are filling. We'll see if the because capitalism breeds this kind of detachment, right? The owners don't actually understand why they're successful. They just bought the thing, right? And I've worked for companies, not the company I currently work for, but I've worked for companies where the owners just became detached and they didn't understand why they were being successful. And they started to make decisions that were completely counterintuitive to how the business should have been run and what the community wanted from the business. Like, that's the real killer, right? You really do have to view yourself as like a community center, like a community outlet. And if customers are coming in and they're saying, this is what we want, and you are not either A, not doing that, or B, doing the opposite, like I worked for Starbucks, and I would have customers come in, I'd say at least 10% of my clientele. And I was like the front of store guy. I'm a front of store guy, right? You guys see how much I talk. This is how much I talk in life. I talk. I'm a talker. I just talk about toys all the time. All the time. I talk about toys. I talk about the business. I talk about all this kind of stuff all of the time. This is actually slow motion for me. Like, I'm talking very slowly as far as I'm concerned right now. The pace at which I talk is more like this. I talk about this speed all the time. Hey, how you doing today? I got a great sale going on over there. If you guys need anything, you let me know, okay? That's kind of the pace that I maintain. So this is more leisurely from my perspective. And while I was working at Starbucks, about 10% of my clientele would come in the door and say, like, hey, do you have any healthy options? And I'd be like, I got a banana. And that was us that started selling those bananas. That was the workers, right? We started selling bananas because we would get bananas in for smoothies, and the workers, like, eventually we would just throw away these bananas. And so people would come in the door and they'd be like, oh, hey, can I buy one of those bananas? They'd be like sitting on the counter. And so we just kind of looked at each other and be like, sure, $1, which is the absurd price for a single banana. And people would be like, okay, and they'd buy it, right? And so we started selling bananas for $1. And then people would come in and be like, do you guys have any other healthy options? Do you have anything? And I started to say this to my management and my districts and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, guys, like 10% of the clientele is coming in and saying, like, we want healthy options. If you guys bought like a bag of apples, right, we'd sell them. We'd sell them and we'd do really well. We'd make a really high margin on that. For sure we would. You could sell an apple like for $2 at a Starbucks and people would buy it for sure. So instead of that, Starbucks announces we're gonna launch a new line of pastries. We're gonna launch a new line of pastries. So instead of listening to their clientele, they went ahead and did the exact opposite. And of course, in the end, it ended up being a bit of a flop. It wasn't unsuccessful, but like, they were really banking and hoping like, oh yeah, this is going to be a big thing. But the reality is like, the pastry line they had, the people who wanted those pastries bought those pastries. And so the people who wanted these new pastries that they bought those pastries instead. They didn't make new customers. Nobody came in because of this. It wasn't like a big successful thing where they increased pastry sales by even 5%, right? They didn't garner any new customers. They didn't make any extra money. Whereas if they had just bought a bag of apples, yeah, they would have made more money. They would have made more customers happy. And more customers would have come in more regularly because they would have known, oh, Starbucks is beginning to provide healthy options. And so, of course, after this whole pastry debacle, I leave the company after this point because I'm just like, these guys are not listening. The company's going downhill, and it was going downhill, and I don't know where they're at now. And so I leave the company because I need to be on a winning team. Like, I'm not going to work for a company that's not listening to its employees and is alienating its consumer base. Like, that's a losing strategy. And so I end up at this company, and it became obvious very quickly that they had a winning strategy, right? And their strategy was excellent customer service. And so they would hire people like me who provide excellent customer service, and who understand, like, the way that you get people to come back is by convincing them that this is an event store, that when they come in here they're gonna have a good time and everything's gonna work out nicely for them, and it's gonna be fun. It's a fun place to be, and so far the owners of the place seem to understand that that's the case. We'll see. I know I'd be having a lot more fun. I think I would have had a lot more fun even if I had asked that lady out and she had said no. I think I would be in a better place right now, and I'd be happier with myself if I asked that lady out and she even said no. But I can't risk it. That's really what it comes down to. I just couldn't risk it. Oh well. Who knows? Maybe it'll happen. Maybe I'll be lucky. Alright guys, I've been talking enough. I got a little puppy here who I'm going to want to put in that wagon. I got to introduce him to the wagon, and then I'm going to play some Minecraft today with my nephew and niece, which is going to be fun. Well guys, I hope you're having fun. I hope that you're saying hello to your friends. I hope that you're making out with somebody. I hope you're having a drink or a smoke or whatever you're doing to make your lives better. And if you're not doing any of those things, I gotta ask you why you aren't, because they do make life better. Johnny Carson had a really great joke I'll share with you now, which was, I knew a guy, he was the healthiest guy I knew. He didn't smoke, he didn't drink, he didn't do drugs, and he lived a very healthy life until the day he committed suicide. Good luck.